you will be randomly assigned to different groups itself, and you will be doing this activity as the instruction given to you in this breakout group itself. In each breakout group, you will be assigned a group facilitator. So they will help you to guide you along with the activity in case you're a bit stuck. Don't worry about that. I will also be floating around during the activity itself. After each activity itself, I will randomly pick 1 to 2 groups to share screen and then talk about what you have actually done in the activity. So like I've said, this is a workshop. It's intended to be interactive. It's not a lecture, right? So you'll be doing quite a bit of work on your own. All right. Without further ado, let's start by going to the topic itself. So today's main conversation is getting you to understand the logic model. I understand from our initial survey itself, in the training assessment survey itself, some of you have some experience with logic model, most of you have not. So we're going to start from the basic, and then you can actually send me the question if you have additional question to ask. Now, this is a very basic structure of logic model. There are 5 components. There is, you start from input, then you go on to activities, output, outcome, and impact. So what does it all mean to you? They are really quite straightforward, and I'm going through the very simple explanation to you. So inputs refer to the type of resources that's required in your program. So it can be your human resources, you need staff, you need volunteers, you need people who is delivering your program itself. You might also be looking at financial resources. I'm sure many of you will be running programs, and there will be some financial resources, even as simple as a transportation allowance requires you to have financial resources. Some of you may be running physical events, so money or venue might be part of the resources that you need. You might also be working with different type of stakeholders, be it, for example, a school, or you might be working with corporations, and those connections, those people who are involved as external stakeholders beyond your programs can be also resources that you need. And then the second one is really about activities. In a nutshell, the activities are referring to the things that you're doing as with the input you have as part of the program itself. So, for example, using this particular activity we are doing as an example, Pro Bono School as a program itself, and this session itself is one of the many activities that we are doing, right? So that is one example of activity. Output is really the immediate results of the activity. This is often referred as the number of a program activity or the frequency of program activity. Or it can also be the number of people that you reach or participated in your program itself, right? So it's pure numbers, number of events, frequency of events, number of participants, number of booklets that you produce as part of your outreach itself, number of people you outreach to, number of sessions you, for example, stand on the street to do outreach. So those are numbers, which is pretty straightforward. Now it comes to slightly more complicated one is the outcome itself. Now outcome in short, we're referring to the short-term or mid-term outcome. Essentially, it refers to what happens as a result of what you are doing. Right. So, for example, in using our Pro Bono School sessions like today as example, after completing the logic model training itself, what we hope to achieve is that you have a better understanding of logic model. That's a very basic outcome, right? You learn about logic model, you have awareness of logic model. A next level of outcome we might be looking at is you are more effectively able to use logic model in your future work itself. So that can be one outcome itself. And last but not least, impact. So impact here refers to a long-term outcome they're trying to achieve through our program. So beyond these sessions that we are doing with you, think about Pro Bono School as a program that we are doing. The ultimate purpose of the Pro Bono School that MPAC is doing such a program is to equip the social sectors with skills and capabilities so that people can run their social program more effectively in a more cost-effective way. So that really refers to what you plan to use and do. And output, outcome, and impact refers to what you want to produce and achieve. Right? So that's a really basic structure of logic model. For some people, they will add in a bit more information. Some of the two sets of information that most people will add to their logic models are, assumptions as well as contextual factors. So assumptions here, for example, are belief that you already have with the program and the resources available, involved, right? It is also including the way you think the program will work. Back to using pro bono school as an example, our assumption is that people who are working in the social sector or people who want to start a social program is lacking in certain skills and capability to go about implementing their social program. So that's an assumption that we have. The second assumption we have is people will be interested to take part in an online activity like this. They want to sign up, they will show up, and they will take part in this. And the third assumption is the wider sectors will find, for example, the logic model as something that is essential to them. So that is an assumption that we have. A contextual factors describe the environment where the program exists and the external factors that interacts and influence the program itself. So that, for example, when we are designing, when we're conceptualizing pro bono school as a program itself, we know that what are the needs in the social sector. People need skills and competency. People need additional training in terms of skills and competency. There's one contextual factor that we know. We also know, for example, many organizations are small setups, right? They may not have the resources to join a complex, professional training or an expensive training that they cannot afford. So that's the context. That's why we actually put together this program called the Pro Bono School, where you can access training virtually or in person, but also at a free cost itself. So these are some of the contexts that we are referring to. Not every one will need to put in assumptions and contextual factors, but what I will encourage you is that as you are developing a logic model itself, it will be very helpful for you to put in those assumptions and context and as much detail as possible, so that when you are onboarding new people, be it volunteers, new staff, or new project members on board, this thinking behind is already captured in one document itself. You'll find it extremely useful when you're talking to different people, even if you are talking to the people you're trying to raise funds from or apply grant from. If you put this all together, you'll be able to articulate your ideas, your social program quite effectively. Right, so moving on. Now, we were talking about, some of you might want to evaluate your programs, be it a small program, be it a pilot program, or something they've been doing for a long time. Here we're saying that apart from using logic model to articulate your program itself, logic model also has a place and a very specific use in evaluating your program. I'm going to start with the information on the left-hand side first. So most of the time, we're encouraging people to develop a logic model before the implementation of your program, usually in a conceptual stage itself, right? But whether you have developed your logic model before or during the implementation of a program, or when you are sometimes only doing it because you want to evaluate your your program outcome or your impact itself, having a detailed logic model itself can help you to identify a few things. First thing is, what is the intended effect? So you will be able to see the output, outcome, and impact of the program. You can also use logic model to identify what kind of activity is likely to produce what kind of effect. And if you develop in a very detailed way, you can also sort of map out what's the sequence of the intended effect itself. If you have added in if you have added in the assumptions as well as the contextual factors, you will see that you can actually list out what are underlying assumptions. And most importantly, it will also guide you on when and what to evaluate subsequently. So that is why in many of our evaluation project itself, we often start off with having conversation with our clients. Can we develop a logic model with you first before we have a full understanding of your program? Now, what is also useful about logic model is that it can help you to understand a few other things, right? So if I'll draw your attention to the top right-hand side of the screen here, so you have the typical logic model, and then most of you should already know what are the needs and priorities that you want to have before you design and roll out a program. So if you look at the needs and priority versus the activity itself, the logic model can help to assess whether the program and program activity itself is actually answering the needs and priority of the intended users, right? So it's really helping you to assess the appropriateness of your activity. Second thing is that a logic model will also help you to measure the efficiency itself. So that is if you're comparing the input and output itself. Let me give you an example of what is potentially an effective program type. So for example, if you are doing a public education itself, you are spending $10,000 to reach out to 20,000 person, right? So effectively, your cost to reach out to each of the person in that public education costs you 50 cents. If you are running a campaign that costs you $100,000, but you only reach out to 20,000 people, that cost itself costs you $5. Now, there's a clear difference between 50 cents and $5. And so that is something that you need to decide whether you have achieved the cost efficiency. I want to caveat to say that not everything that is done cheap means that it's impactful, but it's purely from a cost efficiency perspective, which activity is the best use of your investments, your input itself, especially when it comes to financial resources, which most of us do not have in abundance. Of course, we also look at the cost effectiveness, right? So this is where you're comparing the input versus the actual output and impact itself, right? Earlier on, we talked about efficiency itself, how you're using the resources effectively. Cost efficiency is really getting you to think about whether the investment that you have actually put in versus the outcome itself. So once again, using pro bono school example, we are running this program for free. Say, for example, we are spending $1,000, just for example, right? Spending $1,000 to put together this session itself. 30 people have actually come to attend the session itself, and you have actually learned how to use logic model effectively. From a perspective of cost effectiveness and whether it has achieved its desired outcome or not, it has definitely been able to do that. If let's say I spend another $1,000 and I print a set of booklet and distribute outwards to let people know about program evaluation, logic model itself, but most people do not learn anything from those booklets, for example, then my cost effectiveness has been reduced, right? So it's really balancing between how much you want to put in terms of input versus how much you want to measure in terms of outcome impact. Now, last but not least, we're also looking at effectiveness, so activity versus outcomes that impact itself. So it's really evaluating whether the program that is implemented is achieving its desired outcomes and impact of the program itself. So these are some quick snapshot on why we have designed, why logic model is relevant, especially for those of you are already thinking about how to measure the outcome impact of the program. How is it relevant to your effort itself? So I've said quite a bit in terms of the theory. Now I'm going to move on a little bit more about the example we're going to use throughout this session itself, right? We believe in making you contextualizing it so that you can actually know the theory behind using an actual example. And I'm going to go through the actual example quite quickly. So the example we're going to use today is about a waste reduction program. I'm going to walk you through a story. So the story is that we realize in schools in Singapore, they are using a lot of single-use plastic water bottle, right? And that is a problem we identified. And for us to reduce, and that is actually causing a lot of waste, right? A lot of plastic waste around. And in order for us to help to address this problem that we're observing, we have so decided that in some of these schools, we are going to give away water bottles to the staff and students of the school itself. The intention is so that people will start using the water bottles and then cut down on the single-use plastic water bottle itself, right? So in our example, we have a name for this project itself. It's called Project Water Bottle. And yes, I know that it's not a very creative name, right? Just bear with me. It's the easiest name for us to think about so that we can use it consistently. So that is the story of the example we're using in this session itself. Right. So the example, the problem statement, let me repeat myself. The schools in Singapore are generating a lot of plastic waste in the form of single-use plastic bottle. the activities that we want to develop, they want to implement is to conduct public awareness activity in 10 schools in Singapore, and then also give the school staff and students reusable water bottle. We have very specific outcome we're looking for. First, if the school staff and students have increased awareness in the environment pollution caused by single-use plastics. And then second thing is this school staff and students indicate their commitment to use a reusable water bottle that we have actually been given out. Even if those we have not given out, we hope that they also have this mindset shift as well, they stay committed to that. And finally, we are hoping that throughout our effort itself, the school staff and the students will only use, will only use reusable water bottle for their drinking water in future. Right, so these are the 3 outcomes we're looking for. As a program, it's an initial stage, but in the long run, if we implement this for good 5 to 10 years, we're hoping that the single-use plastic bottle in all Singapore schools is reduced. Right, so that's the example we're using throughout this session itself. I want to take a pause to see if there's any questions so far, in case I didn't see any questions. Oh, not yet. Okay, right. So this example, how we're going to show it to you in logic model. I'm going to take you through using the example earlier on to show you how I will map the information I have across the logic model itself. So in terms of input, we are seeing that we need to have financial resources, we need to have program funding, and we also will try to raise some money from the public. So that's the financial resource we are talking about. In terms of human resources, we are thinking about project leads. We want to have some people who are leading this project itself. And then because we don't want to hire too many staff, we want to tap on volunteers, and volunteers will help us to magnify the impact we're looking for. Last but not least, obviously, we also need people who will be partnering with us in this program itself. So one of the possible input is actually project partners. Schools will be the project partners. So that's the input column. Now let's move on to activity. So what do we intend to do with the amount of resources, the input that we have? The first thing we want to do is that we're going to send recruitment emails to all the schools there. And then we are going to have engagement meetings to school principals. And then after the schools agree that we can go in there, we've recruited the number of schools that we want, we can go in there. Before that, we want to train our volunteers so that they can help us with the awareness talk as well as fact sheet distributions. Of course, then the main activity that takes place in the school compound itself, we're going to have awareness talk in the schools. We're going to distribute the fact sheets. We are also going to be producing and distributing the reusable water bottle. So these are all the activities that we are going to do. Now, in terms of output, if you remember, we are trying to reach out to 10 schools. So all in all, what we are going to do is, we're going to recruit 10 schools in our program. Not every school is going to be agreeable to join you in the program. So we're going to send out as many emails as possible. So we're going to aim to send to 100 primary school and secondary school. Out of that, what we're hoping to do is that we can reach out to at least 20 school principals, have a conversation with them. And of the 100 and then the 20 engagement that we have, we should recruit at least 10 schools who will participate in the project water bottle. In each school, we want to do 2 awareness talk. And for each of the awareness talk, I'm hoping that we can reach at least 50 participants per talk itself. So apart from the participation in the talk itself, we are also getting the volunteer to distribute at least 200 fact sheets through one activity exercise, right? And after towards the end of all the talks as well, we are going to also distribute 200 reusable water bottle per school. So that is output. You'll see the output is predominantly dominated by numbers, right? The number of things I'm giving away, number of people that are participating. I'm hoping that they'll participate in my activity, the number of activities. So purely numbers. And then we move on to outcomes. Now, a quick recap, outcomes are the results of what you do in terms of activity, right? So in terms of outcome, in the 10 partnering school, what I'm hoping to achieve is that the school staff and the students have increased awareness of the environmental pollutions caused by single-use plastics. The school staff and students indicate their commitment to use reusable water bottle. And then the school staff and students will use only the reusable water bottle for drinking water. So that's the 3 key outcomes that we have. Let's go through this, right? You see that in an example like this itself, the first outcome is very focused on awareness. The second outcome is actually focusing about their mindset shift, right? Which is an indication of a commitment. The last one, the use of the reusable water bottle is a behavioral change. So in this simple example here, we see that we're looking at 3 types of outcome itself, right? In most of the public education campaigns, some people might be doing public education campaign, you see that these are the 3 typical things that people tend to measure for. And finally, as I mentioned earlier on, if I'm running this program for 5 to 10 years, hopefully I can actually have an impact that all the use of single-use plastic water bottle in all Singapore schools will be reduced. So, so I've actually shown you how the logic model of project water bottle will look like. I'm going to take a pause to ask you a question, and this is where I'll invite you to use your mobile phone, or you can scan the QR code, or you can actually join us on slido.com. The event number is 2693-895. Join us on this QR code. I just want to get a sense whether you understand what is some of the things that we have covered so far. Right? So you can either scan the QR code or join us on slido.com, and the event code is 2693-895, right? So you join us there, and I'm going to see how many of you have actually been participating in it. I'm just going to take a pause here. So the question is, which of the following statement does not describe an output in the project water bottle? Now, output, remember, is really about numbers of something that you've done, but it has to be a meaningful number, right? So have a quick response. See how many of you here today. Read them very carefully. Not everything is an output. Not everything is an output as a result of what you're doing, because some of the things you're not doing. Right? Output is really about number of people you talk to, number of participants, number of sessions. What is not part of an output here? Right? I'm mindful of time. We can move on a little bit faster. Okay, so let's just move on first. Yeah, those who might not have actually joined the quiz itself, you will see the results later. So the question is, which are the following statement does not describe an output in project water bottle? And the answers are, okay, so most of you have selected the answers. Each meeting, the school principal lasts for 1 hour. Each school has 2 drinking water fountains on the campus itself. And then some of you have selected 50 participants per awareness talk. Some of you have selected 10 schools participating in project water bottle, and 200 usable water bottles are being distributed. So my question is, does not describe an output itself. So the correct answer is each meeting, the school principal lasts for 1 hour. And then each school have installed 2 drinking water fountains on campus. I'm going to ask people randomly, right? Why do you think the first 2 is not describe an output itself? I'm just going to start with Victoria from ArtDis. Why do you think the first one is not an output? Victoria, are you there?
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, okay. I think it doesn't really reflect the real numbers of the project. So yeah, it doesn't matter whether how long the meeting is, so it doesn't reflect the real output numbers.
Correct. Yes, that's correct. Thank you so much, Victoria. Yes. So if you can talk about a principal for 30 minutes or 2 hours, that does not actually describe a tangible output of the project itself. It is effort, it describes the effort, but it doesn't quite actually say an output itself. The second one, I'm going to ask quite randomly. I can ask, let's see, Michael, why do you think the second statement itself, each school has installed 2 drinking water fountain itself on its campus? Why is it not output?
I think simply because it's not this project's it's not what the project does.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Thank you so much, Michael. Yes, correct. So unless your project includes installation of drinking water fountains on campus, that is not something that you report, right? Because it's something that the school they do on their own, but it's not something that you are doing as part of the project itself. So second question is about outcome. Oh, actually, I do have an outcome later. So that's the first question. Hang on. I've completed the first question. So this is where I will break you all into activity group itself. I hope most of you already have downloaded the worksheet. We have provided the worksheet beforehand. I hope you have downloaded the worksheet. If not, you can download the worksheet from the Knowledge at Impact portal itself. Or my team member can actually help you to give you access to the worksheet itself. What I'm going to get you to do is focus on the activity 1 inside the worksheet itself. And this activity should last about 10 minutes. So these are basic instructions. The first instruction is that as you go into the breakout group itself, you can do a quick introduction so that you know who is in the room itself. After you do a very quick introduction, keep it really quick, nominate 1 note taker who will work on the worksheet. The second person will be the one who is presenting on behalf of the group later in the group shareback. You will have a chance to read a case study. You can read the case study individually. And after you're done with the case study reading, in your group itself, complete the worksheets on activity 1 itself, right? And then when we come back as a bigger group, I will be randomly picking a presenter who will then share on behalf of the group itself, right? So please make sure that in your group itself, and you go into the breakout group itself, there's a note taker as well as a presenter. If there's anything that's not quite clear, feel free to reach out to your group facilitator. We're going to assign you to different group we're going to have a group facilitator in each group itself that should be able to answer some of the questions that you have. I will also be floating around to each group itself. Now, you will have a case study, and this case study is across the same for everybody, just for practice sake itself. The case study itself is talking about Sunny Minds by Youth Positive. So Youth Positive is a fictional group itself. It has received a funding of $100,000 from Spotlight Foundation to design and implement a pilot program called Sunny Minds, right? I won't read it in details here. You have a chance to read it in your own worksheet itself. So think about the activity, read the case study. What I will need you to do is complete the first 2 columns under activities and output. And then also think about, what are the other inputs that's required. We're not saying that the logic model we have actually draft for you as a model answer is complete. So feel free to let us know what are the other inputs that you think is missing from the input itself, right? So I'm going to send you all into your respective smaller groups in your breakout room itself, and then you can have a chance to participate in this. All right, so see you in a bit. So 10 minutes from now, and 10 minutes from now will be 5:23. All right, see you in a bit.
All right, opening the rooms now.
Hello, welcome back. I hope you had a good start in the activity early on. So it's a very compressed one. I'm just going to get everyone warm up with a particular case study and have a go with the activity. I'm going to maybe pick one group to share back with us what we have actually done at the group level. All right. I'm going to ask, let me see. Thank you, full names here. Right. Can I have the group that's where Jeremy Poe is actually part of? Jeremy? Jeremy, are you there with us? Who's in Jeremy's group?
Yes.
Yeah, Jeremy. Yeah, okay.
Hello, actually, our group haven't managed to start discussing yet.
Oh, okay. Right. Never mind. We move on. You catch up later, yeah? So another group, let's see. Let me see. Sorry, maybe I'll choose the one with so impact the impact facilitator Eve, which group do you belong to?
Me?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I
Can
was
you-
part of Jeremy's group.
Oh dear. Okay. I can never be so unlucky. Right.
Yeah.
So maybe right. So who Xing Ling, your group, are you ready?
So I think we have appointed a presenter.
Okay, great.
Yes. Michael, right? Yeah.
Yes, hi again.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe could someone help me share the screen? Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so for this project, I think the activities that we identified were a few of them. The first one is the peer support workshops, that that they plan, to use to train the peer facilitators. So this is for, I think, the 20 peer support based on the 20 peer supporters, based on the case study. There are plans to go on engagement talks with schools and nonprofits, to basically secure the buy-in, right, to conduct this water bottle recycling. And then I think the last activity would be the social media campaigns, that the organization also plans to do lah. So and then the next one would be the outputs. For the outputs, I think the few numbers that we identified were firstly the number of peer facilitators. They plan to train 20 young persons as peer facilitators. For the social media website engagement posts, so this wasn't something that was in the case study itself, but I guess a fair amount that we could come up with was maybe like 3 posts per week. And there are plans to engage in a year-long worth of engagement talks. So we just said that I guess 1 engagement talk per month sounds quite feasible. Yeah. So and I think that's all we have for the activities and outputs. Yeah.
Okay, that's a good start. In the interest of time, I won't call another group to come online. I'm just going to share exactly what I have in terms of what to practice. Are you able to see my screen? Yeah, should be able to. Right. So this is going back to the stunning mind, right? This is just the answer. Again, I'm not saying that all the answers that we have will be correct. So in terms of activities, what we are doing is actually making sure that you have to set up an online engagement platform on IG. You are designing a weekly post on IG, conducting the engagement with schools and NPO. I think
Sorry to interrupt you, Brian.
Yeah.
Your volume is a little low.
volume is a bit low.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's much better.
Okay, I'm going to hold this in this way. So what I was saying is that obviously you have to do the social media engagement on the IG itself. You want to do a weekly post. That's something that you do on the activity on IG itself. I think Michael's, your team actually got that correct. So you do an engagement with schools and NPOs. You will conduct the talks with the schools, talks with the NPOs, and then you train and recruit and train young person as peer support. So these are the activities that you're doing. So some of the possible output itself, since we are talking about social media posts on a weekly basis, I think Michael, your point is also talking about that you want to do it on a weekly basis. So we have 48 times 12 months, right? We're not going for 52 months because you see that sometimes you need time to prepare the setup itself. So you're not going for 52 months, 52 weeks. And then we're looking at 12 awareness talks in schools, 12 awareness talks in NPOs, 20 trained peer supporters. And all in all, the program target is really about reaching out to 1,000 young person through talks and engagement itself. Rough the idea, right? If you have in your own group break into this these details in terms of the input, activities, output, I think you are on a good start. Let's go to the next part of today's workshop itself, developing outcomes and indicators itself. Feel free to let me know if you have any question in terms of input and activity. We're going to say a bit more later. So I'm going to show you the water bottle again, right? So earlier on, I was describing to you the 3 outcomes that I want to achieve with the water project water bottle itself. Awareness of the environmental pollutions caused by the single-use plastics, also about the commitment of using the reusable water bottle, and the actual action itself. They will only use reusable water bottle for drinking water. So that's the outcome I'm trying to achieve through the implementation of my project water bottle. So back to this question here itself, using Slido again, using a mobile phone, or if you go on to slido.com, which of the following statement does not describe an outcome of project water bottle? You can see my screen, you should be able to scan the QR code, or you can go to slido.com and answer this question. Right, some of you are answering. I'm not going to reveal the answer so soon. So there are 4 statements here, right? The 4 statements are school staff and students indicated their commitment to use reusable water bottles. Schools report 20% increase in the monthly water consumption. School staff and students have increased awareness of environmental pollution caused by single-use plastics. And last statement is stores in the school canteen stop selling bottled water to staff and students. Which of the following statement does not describe an outcome that I've shown you earlier? Right, so if you, I'm just going to recite this walk you through again, right? So outcome must be something as a result of what you are doing, right? Something that you are actively doing, something you have invested your time and energy in doing, and it's resulted in the outcome itself. And outcome should also be tied back very significantly to your impact, the impact of the program itself. So which of the following statement does not state or describe the outcome in the project? Yes, like Ruben said, if you're not sure, just pick the best guess. All right, in the interest of time, I'm going to move forward, and the statement that does not describe an outcome would be the schools reported a 20% increase in the school monthly water consumption. The stores in the school canteen stopped selling bottled water to school staff and students. I'm going to ask 2 of you, why do you think that it's not a statement itself? Right, Monica, why is the first one not an outcome of the project?
Okay, so the first one is not outcome because this was not one of the activities. It was not, the whole project is not about increase of or how much water consumption they have.
Yep, that's right. Right. So clearly, if all the students or staff are using the water bottle to fill up the water, the school will have an increase in consumption itself, but that's not the outcome we're looking for. In fact, it might be sort of an unintended outcome or the quote unquote negative consequences of that. But you have to fill up water anyway, right? So there will be increase in the water consumption. But that's not an outcome itself, right? Chloe, why is the second point not an outcome?
They're not trying to stop like completely selling bottled water. They're just trying to encourage people to like turn it into like the non-disposable ones.
Correct. Yep. So your intention is not going to stop the school canteen to stop selling bottled water away. You're trying to get people to reduce. That's not the objective, right? So which means when you are looking at the outcome itself, when you're writing out outcome, it needs to be clear about what you're trying to achieve. It must be tied back to your input. It must be tied back to the activity and and output itself, right? You cannot have an outcome that's completely unrelated to any of these things itself, right? I'll give you another example. More recently, we have completed a conversation with a client, and a client is running a school program. The school program, a supportive program for school-going students. One of the component is giving away money for transportations to the students. And in the logic model itself, one of the outcome is students get job opportunity. So I'm going to randomly pick, right? So Sean, explain to me why is that inappropriate outcome in the project itself. So the school is, the program is trying to give school transportation money to students, but the outcome is students will get job employment.
Because the whole project is not about offering job opportunity, but to reduce the single-use plastic.
No, okay. So you might not have heard me correctly. So the
Okay.
school project, the program itself is intended to give school allowance, transportation allowance to students, but the project outcome states that students will get job opportunity.
Okay, so why is that not the intended outcome, right?
Yes, why is not intended outcome?
Not sure why.
Okay. Well, so the intent
So
that don't worry about
I didn't get it. Yeah.
So when we are looking at the logic model described by the program owner itself, we did ask them why is this something that is appearing as the outcome itself. So what they have argued is that, well, in the long run, the students are going to school, the students will attend school regularly, they get better education, and as a result of the better education, they get a better job, better job opportunity. In all sense, it makes sense, but it's too far down the road itself for you to tell that, okay, because of your transportation allowance, this is the outcome you're looking at. And the reason why I raised that is this is relevant to what we're going to discuss next, right? So in each of the outcome itself, you should actually have, for each of the outcome itself, you should have a indicator, because you wouldn't know whether you've achieved the outcome if you do not have something to measure, right? So if you remember, we're talking about awareness, intention to change, and behavioral change itself. I'm going to just use the first one as so the last one example, right? The behavioral change in the project water bottle itself. What would tell us, what would tell you that we have achieved the outcome is that you should have something measurable. In this case, we are talking about 75% of the school staff and students in the 10 participating schools only use reusable water bottle by 2025. Using this example, right, you will see that in all your outcome, eventually you should have something that's measurable, and the indicator is the one that is actually helping to measure whether your outcome is achieved or not. And all indicators should have what has changed, who or where the change has actually happened or taken place in, how many have changed or how much has changed and when it has changed. So using the very last one example, you see that 75% is the how much has changed. The students, the school staff and students in 10 school is who has experienced that change or where the change has actually taken place. And only use reusable water bottle is actually what it has changed itself and by when. By 2025, that is the when it has changed. So in all outcome itself, it will always be associated with an indicator, and the indicator should have all these various components there, right? It should have how much, who or where, what has actually changed itself, and by when. So in a nutshell, 5 good characteristics of a good indicator is that it should be specific. It should be very clearly defined. It should not be ambiguous. It should be as narrow as possible. And it should answer the question of who, what, when, where, why, and how, right? It should also be measurable. All the indicators should have a capacity to observe, analyze, counter, or track. Now, going back to the example I've asked John earlier on, if your project is only about giving transportation allowance to school-going students, but your outcome is they get job opportunity, that itself is in the first place too far-fetched for you to attribute to what you're trying to do. Second is once the students leave school, nobody will be able to tell you whether because of your program, you have actually found a job, right? So that's unmeasurable as an outcome as well, right? Also, in terms of achievable, whether your indicator is realistic or attainable, considering the skill or the scope of work that you achieve, right? Considering the time and resources that you invested in. So going back to the project's water bottle itself, while you are giving, you will see that what we are trying to do is making sure that the change happens in 10 schools, right? Because all your resources and investment can only go into the 10 schools itself. You will not be able to say that half of Singapore schools stop using single-use water bottle. That is unachievable, right? You don't set up something that will fail in the future, right? Whether it's relevant, the indicator should reliably reflect on the outputs and outcomes the program is trying to achieve, right? And last but not least is to also be time bound. It should be timely. It should indicate the time frame itself. So for example, you will see that in the earlier example, it's by 2025. So essentially what I'm trying to do is I'm giving the program participants a space of 2 to 3 years to change their behavior, right? I'm not going to, and likely so, you are likely to, for example, you're going to a school itself, the students will actually stay in the schools for that period of time. You are not going to measure something that will happen once the students will leave the school itself. So there should be a time frame there, right? So again, all a good 5 characteristics of a good indicator is it should be measurable, it should be specific, it should be measurable, it should be achievable, relevant, and time bound, right? So I'm going to get you all to think furthermore using the same Sunny Mind example. This time now I'll give you slightly more time. I'll give you 15 minutes to go back into your respective group to develop the outcome column itself. Okay. I'm not going to go through this again, you're familiar with this. What you need to do is you can copy the information from the earlier slide 7, so you can transfer the information from activities and output from slide 7. What you need to do is to complete the outcome column itself, right? So I'm going to send y'all again in the breakout group. Hopefully you do.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to maybe this time around I'll get 2 groups. Hopefully you have actually completed more of it. I'm going to get the let me see. Can we have the team that Chris belongs to, and Chris team, can you present what you have in terms of the outcome?
Yeah, I can do the presentation.
Perfect.
If we can have the slides up or not.
Yeah, of course you can. Please share screen. Yeah.
Okay, let me see. So I should be able to share screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Let's see. Okay, so we didn't have time to write down everything, but we discussed a little bit more than what you saw here. So we talk about the 3 main things that are the main activities that we talked before, which is the social media campaign.
Sorry, Sharon, I don't
Yeah.
think the screen is up though.
It says now you are screen sharing.
Yeah, it's up.
It's
Is it up? Oh dear, I'm not seeing things correctly. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes,
okay,
so
yes.
we talked about the 3 main activities, basically the social media campaign, the reach out through schools and NGOs, and then the last one is the training of the peer support. And we discussed the outcome for the outreach, basically through schools and NGOs, and a little bit also about the training, the peer support. And we talk about how the more immediate outcomes of that is the increased awareness of the participants of those outreach. And we put it here that we said maybe 80, like we think 80% makes sense of the participants have increased awareness of a certain mental health aspect. And we kind of make some sort of we said that in this, let's say in this outreach, they learn how to be more sensitive, how to listen to their peers, or to provide or connect their peers to the correct support when their peers are in need. So that's what we've written down, that now these participants have more awareness on how to do that. But we also said that they have more awareness about how to deal with their own challenges, or recognizing and starting to reflect about mental health themselves. So that's on the level of awareness, but we also discussed that there's another level of outcome there, which is when those awareness are turned into change of behaviors. And that's something that is harder to measure, and also but probably something that is more impactful if we can know how to measure this and that the awareness does turn into behaviors. So those are the outcomes that we talk about when it comes to the outreach. And when it comes to the peer support, we said that we set 40 in our case instead of 20, that the outcome is the trained peer support started to provide those supports to their peers and started to be involved in these activities where they are directly providing some activities to support their peers, basically. So that's where our discussions ends before we came back to the main group.
Thank you so much for your effort. If you can just keep the screen sharing on for a while, I think it's a wonderful effort. You try to identify within the number of participants that you have. There's a percentage there, right? 80% for the participants itself. And then you're also thinking about the peer supporters itself. I'm going to just go on to the first 2 points itself. The first point, which is 80% of the participants said positively, they have awareness to listen. And be sensitive and connect them to the right support for friends itself. Essentially, you actually have 3 different outcomes indicated there. What might be useful is that, okay, the reason for you not to have 3 different outcomes, remember one point is that from a reporting perspective, from a measurement of the impact perspective, you want to know what you're achieving individually. So what you can potentially do is you can, the first part can be the awareness. So 80% of the participants self-reported state that they have more awareness to listen to people talking about mental health issues. So that's one. Second one is increased sensitivity. So not just having the awareness, but also they have self-reported increased sensitivity itself. And third one is actually because the awareness doesn't necessarily means that you had the right attitude itself, right? So the knowledge itself doesn't really necessarily equals to the behavior. So the knowledge is the awareness, and the sensitivity is the behavior itself, right? There's another action point there. So the action point is connecting them to the right support for their friends in needs. So in order for you to be able to connect your friends in needs to the right places of support, you need to know the knowledge of the resources. So that's a third point there, right? So it's effectively within the first point, you can actually break it down into 3 points there, right? Second one is improve the awareness and start talking about, all right, so perhaps that's actually quite, you can potentially again break it down to awareness, the awareness of mental health issues, awareness, and then you can also break it down to 80% of the participants self-reported readiness to talk about their mental health conditions issues itself. So you can actually break that 2 points down further into 3 or 2 other points itself. So in just for the purpose of measuring itself, again, if you recall the point itself, it should be specific. So awareness on 1 point, knowledge is 1 point, readiness to talk about this can be another point itself. So break them down so that you don't have too many things going on in one outcome itself. All right, so let's thank you so much for the team sharing. I'm going to go on to the next team. Maybe I'll get the team from Monica, your team. Are you ready to share?
I think
we'll just pause for a second. Sherry, you might want to close your sheet, your screen sharing, as we can still see it. Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. Thanks. No worries. Go on. Yeah.
Okay, Victoria will be doing the sharing.
Thanks, Victoria.
Okay, am I able to share my screen?
Yes, you should be able to.
Yeah. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Coming up. Yep.
Okay, so what our team will discuss was the outcome would be quite generic. So the first pointer will be more youth age 18 to 25 have greater awareness of mental health issues. And the second pointer would be more youth are aware on how to support their peers who are in mental distress, also mental health issues. So the third one will be more youth committed to engage with activities to improve to a better mental well-being. I think that's quite generic. That's all.
Yeah. Okay. You can keep the screen on. So sometimes people will build a logic model and keep the outcomes rather generic without going to the specific. The specific can go into the indicators itself, right? So for example, I was in one of the group itself, somebody was talking about, oh, it's very topical, right? So I want to talk about people have gained resilience, people have gained awareness itself. Depending on the scale of the program itself, you will realize that if you have a very big program itself, you cannot afford to state the outcome in a very detailed level. So sometimes a generic one would be good enough. But if let's say your particular program itself is a one-off activity, one community talk, and you're going to cover 5 different topics itself, you might actually want to go quite specific and listing out the outcomes for each of those topics itself. Right? So for example, right, if I'm running a workshop talking about how to support your fellow youth person, just one off itself. So then I can be measuring the awareness, it can be measuring the knowledge of the available resources for youth, the willingness to point my youth, my fellow friends to the resources itself. So rather specific ones. But thank you so much, Victoria and the team for your effort. I'm going to pull out a possible example. Are you seeing my screen now? Yes. Okay. So you see that in my example, quite similar to Victoria and Monica's team itself, I'm also keeping it rather generic, right? Because I haven't gone into the details of what goes into it yet. So my outcome can be through all the activities I'm doing, I'm actually hoping that the young persons gain awareness on mental wellness issues. They know where are the mental health resources available. That's the knowledge part, right? The awareness and the knowledge part. I'm also trying to see whether the young persons will be more willing to seek mental wellness support themselves. And then they're also more equipped to support their peers on mental wellness issues itself. So all in all, you see that the outcome itself is definitely tied back to your activities, as well as it should lead towards your impact itself. Your outcomes cannot be disconnected from your impact, right? I think early on, I was also in another group talking about one of the comments was public will have an increased awareness of mental health issues. True enough, your youth is part of public, but again, going back to how specific the outcome should be, your program is for a young person. So the only thing you are measuring should be a young person, because that's the only data point you're going to go back to a young person. You will not be asking, for example, somebody who is in the 40s or 50s, have you gained any awareness in our program? Because your program is not intended for the target audience. All right, so just a bit more information here. So for example, if you intend to develop further in terms of outcome indicators like the Cheryl team have actually put on, you can actually have the outcome and then you can state the indicators. So in our context, one of the examples is that 75% of the program participants self-reported they are more confident in having conversation with their peers about mental health issues. They also self-reported that they know the mental wellness resources they can signpost their peers to. So these are some very specific outcomes that we are outcomes and indicators we're looking for, right? And the outcomes is related to seeking support. So we also want to hear, for example, 75% of participants self-reported they are more ready to seek mental wellness support if necessary. Now, this is really introduction of logic model and how you develop outcomes and output itself, inputs itself and outputs itself. So if you are actually in the midst of developing a logic model for your own program, whether you are running a social enterprise or you are running an SSAs or you are doing some ground initiative, you don't have to start from scratch, right? There are some online resources you can tap on for your outcome indicators itself. Some of my favorite, actually, you'll be quite familiar with it. The Race Social Value Toolkit itself, it covers quite a bit of domains. And iris is something that can tap on quite useful. These are free resources you can access quite easily online. All right, so I think we are slightly behind time, but I'm going to take 5 minutes to see if you have any questions from anyone. Any burning questions first? Let me see. Any questions that is left unanswered for anyone? All right, if not, I'm going to hand it back to Ruben to take you through the remaining parts. Ruben?
Yeah, sure. So you all should have received the link. So basically you can see this training again on YouTube, and we also have the training materials uploaded onto the knowledge portal. We'll send the link again, but check your when you signed up, you would have received the link. So you can kind of study this in your own time as well. Moving on. Yes, thanks Fat for dropping it again. And for those that have stayed back until this now, let's just take a quick picture for the training. Yeah, let's do that. Why not? If you don't mind turning on your screen, we'll just take a quick one. Thank you to
I need you to stop sharing screen. Yeah.
Cool. All right, 1, 2, smile. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Back to the remaining slides. We'll cover this very quickly, promise, don't leave yet. Oh yeah, please fill up this form. It only takes 2 minutes. If you can do it right now, that would be great. We are running a bit late on time, so I will trust you guys to do it. But please just take a minute to fill it up. We would really appreciate your input. Okay, and next, so the link is in the Zoom room. Yeah. And
sorry, the QR code is not working.
Is the link not working? Oh, the link is not working. Let's see. I see. We might just. Okay, it's working now. Try again. It should be working now. No, it's not working. Not working still.
How about this? We can send the participants the link after the workshop
Yeah.
itself.
All right, can do. I just enabled it. It should be able to work now. If anyone can confirm that, that would be great. But okay, anyways, just a reminder again, we have a Procter & Gamble session happening on June 15. It is live. Yeah, so that should be quite fun. And next, if you have any questions, please reach out to us on LinkedIn, specifically about any partnerships at all. Or inquiries about today's training. Reach out to us. Yeah, and that's it. Thank you for turning up. We appreciate it. Thanks for all your attentiveness and being so your full-hearted attention to today's training. And stay in touch with us for more pro bono school trainings. Yeah. With that ends our session today. Thank you.
Thank you.